Hello my dear friends, you're in the Military Summary channel, and this video we're going to discuss Iranian strike on the territory of Israel with significant number of drones, cruise missiles and ballistic missiles. As you know, on the night from 13th on the 14th of April, the Iran launched a very powerful attack, and that was like the response to Israel attack on Damascus, on the, let's say, some buildings and diplomatic consul building of Iran. And the Iranians called the evening operation the Faithful Promise. The sources associated with the Shiite Axis claimed that the Iranian attack consists of three phases: launching the let's say drones from Iran, launching drones of missiles from the Axis countries like Syria, Lebanon, Iraq and Yemen to make it difficult for the Israel air defense systems, and launching cruise missiles and ballistic missiles. So a lot of questions, a lot of videos, a lot of geolocations, lots of very interesting things, and today with this video I would like to discuss with you and to receive probably the answer to the most important question: what is going to be next? What is going to be next? Okay, first let's start. Before the beginning of the operation, most of the countries in the regions closed their airspace. We know that Egypt closed its airspace. We know that, let's say, the Syria closed its airspace, Lebanon closed its airspace, Israel closed its airspace, and of course Iran itself closed its airspace. And there were some doubts about the behavior of the country by the name of Jordan, because we know that the Western countries, United States of America, could use the territory of Jordan for air defense and probably for counterattacks on the territory of Iran. So the Ministry of Defense of Iran, before the situation started, stated that any country that opens its airspace or territory to target Iran and help Israel will face Iran's decisive response. So that's why we haven't received any reports whether the Jordan was involved in this situation. The only thing we have, that Jordan declares a nationwide state of emergency. So once again, as we discussed, Iran were using significant number of different types of weapons, missiles and drones, and the most important, Iran was using significant number of types of carriers. The Iran was attacking the Israel with ballistic missiles, ground to ground, surface to surface, right? So on this video, for example, we can see the Iranian missiles heading on the territory of Israel. The sources reported that Iranians were using also the ships, the Navy fleet to attack the territory of Israel. The only thing we haven't received whether the Iranian forces were using aircraft like strategic aviation, like the Russians were using like Tu-22 Tu-116s when attacking Ukraine. We haven't seen something like this from the territory of Iran, from Iranian side. So this is very interesting. The Israeli, from their side, also were using different types of air defense. The Israeli forces, for example, were using F-16s aircrafts with the air-to-air missiles to bring down and to destroy the Iranian drones and Iranian, cruise and ballistic missiles. Also, United Kingdom was helping Israel with air defense. There was reports that British fighter jets took off from Cyprus to intercept UAVs and missiles launched from Iran towards Israel. As we know, the United States of America wasn't involved in that situation. So that was basically more or less plus minus the conflict. The entire situation was just a game between Israeli, Iran and Iranian proxies like territory of Syria, territory of Iraq and territory of Yemen. So once again, the question is, what is going to be next? Before we continue, a few things that we haven't seen during the previous night, and this is very important. From this perspective, you might say that this is not important, but this is the most important thing. You know that during the previous night there were no clashes on the ground. There were no, let's say, offensive operations, storming of the cities, sabotage operations, explosions, terrorist attacks. So there were no simply say there were no ground operation. So basically that was a missile war. And when talking about missile war, there is just one option, just one, let's say, end of this operation. Who has more missiles is winning this war. So we can say the main answer to question who's going to win if the conflict continues, who is going to win the conflict, is the answer to the question who has more missiles, either missiles and drones and different types of attack weapon. Either Iranians have more drones and ballistic and cruise missiles, or the Israeli has more air defense missiles. So this is very simple, and so that's why both countries, either Israel and Iranians, try to show and to present the best work of air defense from the Israeli side and missile attack and drone strike from Iranian side. And so Israel, of course, at the beginning of that attack wanted to stay on the safe side. They understand that the most important thing, the most expensive thing is air defense missiles, because Israel belongs to the Western countries. That means that everything is very expensive. Missiles, air defense, weapon is very expensive because they're buying this mainly from the Western countries, from the NATO, from the United States of America, which is very expensive. And when talking about Iran, everything is very cheap. But the only problem of Iran is technologies, to get the necessary equipment, necessary parts, and so on. But anyway, Iranian weapon is much more cheaper in comparison with an Israeli one. So that's why Israelis understand that, first of all, they need to save their potential as long as possible during the night, and they need to, let's say, destroy and suppress the proxies, because proxies is the biggest danger that was in front of Israel, because proxy can attack easily, not with ballistic missiles, not with cruise missiles, not with Shahed. They can attack easily with basically multiple launch rocket systems, and you also need to spend very expensive missiles to, let's say, destroy them. So as soon as the operation started, Israel started bombing the southern part of Lebanon, just with one purpose: to destroy the possible positions of, let's say, multiple launch rocket systems in the area, with just basic multiple launch rocket systems that Lebanon and the forces Hezbollah has on the territory. So there were very, very heavy explosions, and during the night we received significant number of them. But anyway, after a few waves of attacks from Israeli side, the, let's say, Hezbollah forces managed to regroup in the area, and they started bombing the territory of Israel with multiple launch rocket system. Of course, Israeli were forced to use air defense, very expensive air defense, to bring these missiles down. Somewhere at night, we start receiving some, let's say, approximate numbers of the cost of air defense from Israel, and around, let's say, during the night, we got the first number that Israeli sources reported that the cost of the air defense is used so far for tonight has reached almost 1 billion. Imagine yourself, 1 billion just for one night. Now just from this perspective of the costs of air defense, could you ask yourself, let's say, for question, how long the Israel is able to, let's say, stand on their positions and to repel, let's say, Iranian attack if one day cost 1 billion? Of course, we're not saying that Iran has the, let's say, endless number of missiles and drones and so on, but of course, this is ongoing process. During the special military operation in Russia, they managed to establish lots of production, lots of factories. Russia paid for everything. Of course, everything was built mostly on Russian and Chinese money. So that's why there is a real production of this type of weapon, and maybe they're not able to hold this level, support this level of attack every single day, but few days, then small pause, another few days, and so on. And the question is whether Israel has the same possibilities to support the same level of production of air defense missiles. Currently, nobody can give us the answer to this question. Maybe they can, maybe they not, but the problem is that United States of America has a lot of conflicts all over the world, not just in Israel, but also Ukraine, and we understand that the situation in Taiwan can go also in some very difficult direction, and then obviously the Western production will not be able to support three regions against three very powerful economies and three most important powerful productions in the world, like Russia, Iran, and China, and this is the biggest problem. Anyway, let's return back And during the first phase of attacks, as once again, for example, on this video, we can see the flight of famous Iranian Shahed heading towards the territory of Israeli. On this photo, we can see the swarm of drones heading towards Israeli. On this video, we can see the flying of ballistic missiles. The sources, some sources were saying that there were around 200 missiles launched on the territory of Israel. Some sources are saying that there were up to 1,000, maybe summarizing everything, including, let's say, drones, missiles, and also the missiles that were launched from the proxies. Very difficult, of course, to understand. And during the first phase of attack, of course, the Israeli was very, we can say, professional, very successful with air defense. Most of the missiles were brought down by the Israeli air defense, and during the first, let's say, a few hours, we were receiving just the let's say the missiles, Iranian missiles, drones were brought down by the Israeli air defense, and everything was, let's say, going according, let's say, on schedule. So everything was fine. But the more waves, the more missiles were launched on the territory of Israel, and somewhere before the beginning of the morning, we start receiving the first videos of how the Iranian, let's say, missiles broke through the Israeli air defense and reached the target. And that was probably the most not pleasant, not beautiful video or picture for Israeli and the Western partners. For example, on this video, we can see the Israeli attempts to bring down another batch of Iranian missiles. As you can see, the strikes took place above some big city. Maybe it's Tel Aviv, maybe it's Jerusalem. Very difficult to understand. Maybe today we're going to receive more details and updates. And as you can see, the Israelis were trying to, let's say, destroy the missiles, but at some point, at some second of the video, we understand that most of the Iranian missiles managed to break through the Israeli air defense, and the missiles reached the target. And very likely, significant number of air defense systems of Israel were destroyed. So another important thing, as a result of this night, as a result of attack during the previous night, we were talking the first part, that important to understand the number of missiles and the number and the level of production. And the second thing is carriers. Carriers is also very important, and we can make a conclusion that very likely up to 100% that during the previous night, Iran hasn't lost even a single missile or drone carrier. So even a single base wasn't hit by Israeli, let's say, that was involved in attack on Israel. Let's say drone was flying from some certain weapon or something like this, or missiles were launched using some kind of carriers. Even a single one wasn't destroyed. But we can't tell for sure, for 100%, whether, let's say, the Israeli managed to save every single air defense system they have, let's say they had yesterday in the evening. Because even from this perspective, from this video, we can see the possible area, approximately the area of air defense work from the Israeli side. And in this last part of the video, we see that Iranian missiles got the areas of possible work of Israeli air defense. So we can't be for sure whether let's say by the next evening, Israel will be with the same number of air defense as they, let's say, used to be in the previous evening. Since this is also not a very good situation for Israel. Obviously, now the United States of America probably need to think how to send additional Patriot systems or something like this to Israel. And we know that Ukraine, for example, also demand for this type of weapon. Very difficult situation. Also, during the night, after we start receiving the first explosions, the first, let's say, missiles reach the target, we start receiving significant number of this type of, let's say, videos from all over the entire Israeli, and most of them were successful from Iranian side. A lot of explosions, a lot of strikes of drones, and some explosions were the result of work of, let's say, Shahed 136 arrivals. Some explosions were the results of missile arrivals. So anyway, the situation is very difficult. And despite the difficult situation, the question, well, now we are coming to the most important part: what is going to be next? And we see that the situation is very good and very, very united from Iranian side. For example, as a result of those strikes, first of all, Iranian demanded and required and asked United States of America not to involve into conflict. We have a lot of reports that the US has asked Iran through Qatar to immediately stop its attack on Israel. Iran ignored the request. They threatened to strike on American bases if the US intervened. Furthermore, we have report from China. For example, the China close to the government, let's say newspaper, reported that Iran responded with strategic intelligence with missiles and drones, successfully destroying major military targets in Israel. Probably they were talking about air defense, which is most important, and aircrafts with possible F-16s that can bring down the the Iranian missiles with air-to-air missiles. But when talking about the Western countries, we see completely different stories. We see mainly some fights between the leaders, between Joe Biden and Netanyahu himself. For example, Joe Biden, according to informed sources, Biden privately expressed concerns that Netanyahu is trying to drag Washington into a broader conflict. From the other side, we see Donald Trump. Israel is under attack. This should never have been allowed to happen. This would never have happened if I were president. We see that no reaction from the United States of America, at least official. We don't know what is happening below the doors and so on, but official statement is that Biden doesn't want to support Netanyahu. We see that there is a very big conflict between Biden and Netanyahu, and these guys can't, do anything with this. And this is very bad piece of news. And of course, the most important report that the Israeli promised or decided to strike back. Because you might say that it's not very good to escalate the conflict furthermore, that the countries, the parties should stop, that Israel should probably not to respond to this attack. But the most problem is, once again, the carriers. Probably the Israeli lost significant number of air defense. They still have some attack forces, and now Israel, if they want to be on the safe side, they need to destroy the carriers. They need to destroy probably the ships, the launching areas, because if they don't do this, then this conflict, this part will be finished with the minus from Israeli side and with big plus from Iranian side. And if Israel wants to be on the safe side and show that Iran is not able to, repeat this attack, they need to destroy carriers, the launching systems. They need to destroy infrastructure that Iran can use for these attacks, just to win some time, not to even to make the same equal situation, but to win some time. Nobody knows how the situation is going to develop further. From the other side, Israel requested for emergency council of United Nations organization. They blamed Iran of attack and on the territory of Israel, and Iran from their side said that Iran didn't break any law, and that Iranians were attacking Israel based on the 51st paragraph of the United Nations Charter, attack on self-defense after the attack of Israel in Damascus. So very complicated, very difficult situation. Mainly this is not the situation of war on the ground that we used to see in Gaza, that we currently see in Ukraine. This is the war of production, the war of missiles. Unlikely there are going to be any ground operation, unlikely this is going to be just missile strikes, and this war will win the side who has more missiles, who has better production, who has better technologies, and that's it. And this country will at some point establish complete superiority over the region, and then this is going to be completely different story. And that's it for Israeli-Iranian conflict for today. Military Summary channel reminds to condemn any violence in the world. Thank you for watching. Subscribe to my channel, put your likes, join my Patreon, and have a good day. Bye bye.